Okay, if I could get everyone to sit back down, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. We are very fortunate to have today Dr. John Kaplan, who is the director of the Department of Veterans Affairs Technology Transfer Program. Dr. Kaplan has a distinguished background. He received a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of New Mexico, and he has his JD in intellectual property from George Mason University School of Law. He's also a graduate of the Air War College, Air Command and Staff College, and Squadron Officer School. He's licensed to practice law in Virginia and DC and in the USPTO as well. He's a professional engineer in Virginia. He joined the Office of Research and Development as the TTP director in April 2016. Before joining the Technology Transfer Program, he held varied roles in the federal, private, and military sectors. He served as attorney advisor at the U.S. International Trade Commission, chief of enterprise architecture for the Department of the Air Force, law clerk at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, director of the Office of Management Operations at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. And he was a senior research engineer / program manager at the Department of Justice. He has a very distinguished career covering many areas. I want to mention that he served as a senior communications engineer at the Pentagon, as chief of communications maintenance at Kirtland Air Force Base, and as chief of communications program and workload control at Tinker Air Force Base. His accomplishments go on and on. I don't want to take up too much of his time, but I do want to mention that the University of New Mexico and the VA have a very active joint research program, and that has resulted over the years in 59 different inventions, 16 issued patents, and very impressively, 9 different startup companies. So there's active collaboration going on with the VA in New Mexico. Thank you, Dr. Kaplan, for being here.
All right, well, thanks so much. So let me ask a question. After that bio, what does that tell you? What does that tell you about me? All that. No, you know what it tells me? I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I've been around a long time. So let me tell you what I'm going to try to do here. Hopefully you'll remember 3 things from my talk. Okay, 3. Maybe 1, but hopefully 3. So the first thing is my connection to New Mexico. Okay, I was an officer at the Pentagon, first assignment at the Pentagon. I don't know what I did to upset people, but I came out here to Kirtland, right? And I'm at the Pentagon now as a lieutenant, as a junior officer. I was nothing there at the Pentagon, right? I come here, they're like, here's your parking space. Here's your office. They're standing up when I come in the room. I'm like, where am I? I'm in some twilight zone. But let me tell you what I realized at the Pentagon and what helped me here at Kirtland tremendously. I realized that thinking outside the box and being an outside-the-box thinker and a wheeler dealer was how to get stuff done. And so I did here at Kirtland. And you know what I did? Who's here from Sandia? Okay, Sandia. I was in the communications unit. We were taking care of Sandia, helping them. And they had plenty of money. So anytime I wanted, I would call up my contact at Sandia, and I'd get whatever I needed. And then the Air Force would be like, how are you doing that? How are you getting that done? And I don't know whether I was savvy or just didn't know any better. I never said anything about Sandia. I just let it roll, and we did amazing stuff out here. We changed an entire telephone switch. We put in fiber optics. We went to just-in-time supply. We did all kinds of stuff. And because of that job, anybody here recognize the name Leo Marquez? Leo Marquez was from Albuquerque, General Marquez.
My dad.
It's your dad? Holy cow. So I'm sure you know there's an award named after him. So there's a General Leo Marquez Maintenance Award. I won that award for the entire Air Force when I was here. And not only that, I had an airman win, Airman of the Year for the entire Air Force, and a civilian win for the entire Air Force. It was amazing, and your dad actually came out to the base and presented me with the award. The most prestigious award I've ever gotten. So that's amazing.
Level, that's huge.
Yeah, that was huge. That helped launch my career after that. So I have a real affection for New Mexico. I actually still have a house up at Indian School and Tramway, and my plan is to live here during the winter and the Jersey Shore in the summer. Not the Jersey Shore from the TV show. Not the Jersey Shore that. So that's the first thing to remember about me. Love Albuquerque. Had great job here. It was amazing. While I was here, active duty, I started going to school at the University of New Mexico for my PhD, even though I had a colonel tell me, you can't do that part-time. I said, all right, I can't do that part-time. We'll see if I can do that. And again, Sandia helped me again because some of the classes were requirements. They were only offered during the day. I couldn't leave the base to come to campus, but Sandia had a TV system. They'd pipe classes in from all over. That's how I took the classes, because I was in with the Sandia people. Even though I wasn't a Sandia employee, they let me do that. So connections count. All right, that's number one. Second thing I'm going to mention, the people have mentioned the patent system and stuff. I worked for a federal judge on the federal circuit. Okay, again, I only got that because a guy I worked with played tennis with the judge. It's all who you know, right? This judge would give a speech how the patent system is a gift to future generations. We have people, they disclose all their inventions, all the details of them, and they get a monopoly on them for a certain amount of time, but then they're out in the public domain for people to grow on. So the patent system is a gift. What I think technology transfer, what I do, what the technology transfer office does here at the University of New Mexico, we're kind of the delivery system to get that technology out into the commercial sector, as the gentleman from the Air Force Research Lab mentioned. And that's what my office does. We try to get stuff that's coming from the VA researchers, clinicians, or whatnot, out into the public sector as products. The latest thing we just commercialized, if you go out in the drugstores and you see Rain eye drops for dry eyes and stuff, Rain licensed an eyedropper for people who don't have dexterity, for people who can't move. Now if you buy Rain drops, that eyedropper comes with it. That was developed by the VA. Who would have known? Did you know that? No. See? People don't even know the VA has technology transfer. So technology transfer is the delivery system. Point number 2, if you can remember that. So Kathleen was in New Mexico. Who you know, think outside the box, get stuff done, be a wheeler dealer. Second thing is patent system's a gift, and tech transfer a delivery system. Now, the key point of my talk today, leadership. Leadership matters in everything that was discussed up here. The gentleman from Sandia with the AI system talked about his team. Leading a team, getting the right people on that team is the key, whether you're in the government, private sector, venture capitalists, or anything. It's the team that is together, and the leader that's leading that team makes a difference. A big difference. I've worked for many, many people over the years, many. I can't even count. I could think of 2 people I've worked for that I would say were real leaders and I would follow into whatever. Most people have a hard time with leadership because leadership is hard, right? What do you think leadership is? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Trust.
Trust. What else? What is a good leader?
Innovative.
Innovative. What else?
And they see problems and they see solutions for the problems.
Okay, that's good. See, I like that. When I think back about my career, and you saw how long you were reading the thing here, the one thing I always realized, whether I was at the Pentagon, whether I was at the VA, whether I was in justice, whatever it was, the ability to see people on your team, to see their strengths, and to see their weaknesses, and to see how that team fits together is key to a team. My team right now, I got to the VA, there was 2 people in the office, 2 in the tech transfer office for the entire VA. We're up to 30 now, including me. Not enough, but way better. I got people on there that have diverse backgrounds. I got an enlisted guy that was enlisted in the Air Force, and you know what he did in the Air Force? He was an explosive ordnance guy. He diffused bombs and stuff. He knew nothing about tech transfer. But if I need to talk to someone about a new idea, I go to him. Because he's outside the box. Now, a lot of times he thinks of things, and we're like, yeah, that's great, but we can't do that. So what I want to leave this group with, whether you're an innovator, a researcher, a business person, whatever you are, leadership, in my view, Kaplan's view after many years at this, is the key to getting things done. And if you look at organizations that are successful, they'll have a good leader. And if you look at organizations that aren't, their leaders, not that they're not good, but for example, in the VA, a lot of the leaders in the VA, especially now, they're afraid. They're afraid to make a decision. They're afraid to do stuff that they might get in trouble because it's easier just not to do anything. Okay, I'm the total opposite. We try new things all the time. The latest thing we're trying is the VA has the ability to get donations in. And we were told, oh, you can't use that for tech transfer. Well, after a few years and working at it, now we have 2 streams of donations. One's for research and development. One's actually if we want to buy things for a veteran and the VA doesn't have money for it, we get donations. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. Okay, 3 things. Willing and dealing, thinking outside the box. Patent system and tech transfer being the delivery mechanism. And leadership is key. Okay, how did I do? I do all right? Yeah. Anybody have any questions for me? All right, I'm going to turn it over to the panel. I hope you folks enjoyed my discussion. At least it was lively. Right? I have sung and danced before, but I'm not going to do that. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaplan. And very fittingly, we have 2 of our panel members who they can start coming up to the front. 2 of our panel members are from commercializing joint NMVA inventions. So we value our partnership with the VA a great deal. I'd like to introduce our moderator for this panel, and that's Janeth Peña. Janeth is with Sandia Biotech as their Chief Science Officer, and she also is now the Executive Director, as of January 1st, of NMBio. I had the privilege of working with her for the past year when I was president of NMBio, and admire her work very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, I just want to say that I am very excited about this panel as well. It's always great to see the innovation that's happening here in New Mexico when it comes to the life science industry and the biosciences. So we can go ahead and get started. I know that each one of you will go ahead and talk maybe 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and open up for questions. Should we get started with you?
Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Folkman. I'm actually a New Mexico born and raised. I was born in Albuquerque, grew up there, and then moved to Arizona. So there was a lot of discussion today about innovators and their teams, and so I wanted to start by introducing my team. So as I mentioned, I was born and raised here. I did my undergraduate studies at Northern Arizona University. I did my PhD at Colorado State University, and then got really sick of the United States and went to Spain for 4 years. Got really sick of Spain and came back here and started my career at New Mexico State University, where I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry. When I was in Spain, I actually recruited a student. That's Camilo Munoz Peña. He's from Colombia. He was doing his master's degree in Spain, and he told me his dream was to do his PhD in the United States. He ended up coming with me to start my lab, and he's done a lot of the research that I'm going to talk about today. And of course, we have the most important member of my team at the front. That's Leo, el perro más guapo del mundo. So the research that I'm going to talk about today is related to electro-organic synthesis, and traditional organic synthesis relies on toxic or reactive chemicals that are used stoichiometrically. That is, they're used once and then the leftovers are disposed of. An example that I include here is bleach, which as a household chemical is not a large problem. However, at the industrial scale, that does create environmental waste and additional cost for the disposal of that material. I'd also like to mention that for industrial chemical or fine chemical synthesis, new bond formation is always key. So an example that I include here is the formation of a sulfur-nitrogen bond. That's the key bond in sulfa drugs used in antibiotics and anti-cancer drugs. So the solution proposed by my team is to, instead of using a stoichiometric reagent, using electricity to drive the bond-forming reaction of interest. So if we have a chemical that we want to produce, then we can use electricity to drive the formation of that. And that avoids the use of stoichiometric or harsh, dangerous reagents because we do not have to isolate any of these reactive compounds. So in an overview that I'm presenting here is the use of a mediator, wherein we oxidize the mediator, so the oxidation is loss of electrons, that reacts with a nucleophile, shown here as Nu, that then couples to another R group, R, to form the new bond, R-Nu. And we've actually already successfully demonstrated that for the formation of sulfur-nitrogen bonds. So we have made a series of sulfa drugs using this mediated process in high yields up to 90%. And so the advantage to this technology is that it's inexpensive. There's no stoichiometric waste that's generated along with it. We use the principles of green chemistry, so we have inherently safer chemistry. We use catalytic reagents, and we use non-toxic solvents such as ethanol. And this process is inherently scalable because electrochemistry is inherently scalable. In fact, some of the largest industrial processes, such as the chloralkali process, is an electrochemical process. And so when we're considering who might be of interest or who might be interested in this, we're looking at fine or pharmaceutical companies that are synthesizing their intermediates or commodity chemical syntheses, for example, the synthesis of ethyl acetate as a green solvent. When we consider the market share, we see that pharmaceuticals, fine chemicals, agrochemicals, and bulk chemicals are all large or very large. And if we look at just fine chemicals, that was a $173 billion industry in 2024. Some of the major players being companies like BASF, Pfizer, or Sumitomo Chemicals. So when we're looking to the future, we have to first look to the past. We filed a provisional patent last year. We submitted our publication this year. And in the coming months, using my NMSU startup funds, We'll be doing preliminary studies to look at the substrate scope, so what are the range of sulfur nitrogen containing compounds we can synthesize. And then we also are looking into other bond-forming reactions such as carbon-carbon or carbon-nitrogen, as well as oxidations that are of interest. And what we're looking for today, and for anyone who would be interested, we're looking for partners who would be interested in the commodity chemical scale synthesis or fine or pharmaceutical chemicals to help us guide the selection of what are the specific molecules of interest, what are the scales, what is the demand. Those are the types of things as a chemistry professor we don't always know. And so that's where I'm looking for a strategic partner who can help us target specifics. So with that, I'd like to thank you. And if you can scan this QR code if you'd like to email me and ask me any other questions.
The red arrow. This red arrow. Oh. Right, so my invention is Biologics for chronic pain. Now, my life goal right now is to turn veterans, which have twice the amount of chronic pain than the general population, and turn them into happy campers. So I'm starting with a small population of the veterans, because then it can receive rare drug, expedited review through the VA. Now, these veterans, we found out through the VA system, is 66% of them, males, 60% of the females, they're still getting opiates, okay? So, and that's probably true of the general population. So, I've been doing pain research with wonderful teams for 50 years, true confession. So we started with this. I made a time course and looked at RNAs across time out to 10 weeks of pain. And I was able to do that in a model that I developed for this trigeminal neuralgia. It's known as suicide disease. It is so painful. It is absolutely awful. And so I wanted to stop that. And so in this model that goes out 100 days at least, I looked at the RNA scans, as I said, and then I made with a partner an antibody, a monoclonal antibody. Now, you know that pain is not just this small population, and the veterans have twice the amount of pain because of their exposures, pesticides, and frank nerve injuries. But pain is a blooming field, blooming market. There's, what does it say, 1.5 billion global people with pain. So, as I said, I've worked with great teams, and one of the persons that I met 10 years ago was Adi, up there in the corner, Adi Kunamneni. He and I devised, based on this RNA screen, these specific targets, and we made antibodies to them. So, as I said, great teams, and the great team that came this year was Dr. Silverman here, who has partnered, and she is doing the strategic planning to build, and has built a company to market this. Well, first we have to go through all the steps, but anyway. And so my current team, though, is over at the University of New Mexico, Dr. Paramasavam, who's doing cellular work with human neurons, and Jim Brian de la Peña, who is looking at, he's an expert in transcriptomic profiling. And then, of course, we will be needing more and more clinician, Dr. Reza Asanian, who's the director of the Pain Management Center at UNM. So we've gathered $5 million in grant funding over the past, whatever that is, 26 years. And we're at the end of that right now. So, but this is how it works. This little molecule, this monoclonal antibody that I made, we Audie took just the recognition part. That's all you need. It's a small protein. And he has made a recombinant protein to it that when I give it to animals, and I started with this model, but it works in any nerve injury model I've tried, including chemotherapy-induced pain, which is my VA-funded grant. It brings it back to normal levels. It's like a miracle. This little thing attaches itself to the neurotransmitter channel that initiates all of those neuromediators and inflammatory cytokines that are known as chronic pain. So the secret to this one that I chose serendipitously is, because there's plenty of research that precedes this, but none of the drugs have worked because of the side effects and the cross-reactivity. So I had selected a sequence, a 13 amino acid sequence, in this molecule that doesn't exist in any of the databases. And we made this little molecule. Now, this receptor that activates all of these cascades is sequestered. It's not typically in the membranes until you have pain, nerve injury, inflammation, stress of the cell. And then it pops into the membrane and causes this terrible cascade. So this particular molecule will block that. And it also winds it down, and we have evidence that there's nerve repair going on, as well as the diminution of the cytokines that cause pain. So all those other drug companies that have spent billions and are making billions, they're treating symptoms. But this molecule can shut down and allow the nervous system to go back to normal. And it's working in every model I've tried. And it's really like a miracle. So Dr. Silverman is she's already submitted a briefing to the FDA for the Interact meeting. And she is forming up a company, as I said, and we are going to, with this VA grant that's hopefully going to go out by Friday, is going to secure funds to finish the first phase, what's it called? The translational, the profiling for the chemical, which we published. But there's a few more steps, and then we'll be ready to go into what's it called? The TRLs phase 2 to try to bring this to the market. And so this is a one-of-a-kind drug. Its only use so far has been the SCFVs, they're called. These proteins are used in cancer to specifically target someone's cancer cells to kill it. And it's also used in dry eye. There's one, but there's very few. There's nothing in pain, and there's nothing in pain that can wind down pain permanently, other than this, which works in animals. And we are now working with this to shut down pain. It actually prevents the genetic expression, winds it back down, and it happens instantly in our human nerve cell culture that we are working with, thanks to the clinician. And Dr. Silverman is working with the company who is trying to find a way to deliver. Well, they have a product that's patented, so there could be 2 patents together to disperse it like Flonase into the nasal cavity, which is where the trigeminal nerves endings are that cause this horrible pain. Or it could be, it's been done by a company, IV, or even as a subcutaneous depot in my animals. It works fine either way. And as I said, it works in all the different models. And so the new team that I have that's just forming up is at the VA, in my VA lab. It's also with this team at the University of Mexico, where I also have a lab and the clinician there. But we're also working with Los Alamos because they have a humanoid platform that we can test. And it gives a little bit more information than just the neurons in the dish. And we'll be able to see if there are any toxic effects on these larger tissue scale humanoid platform. And we can estimate dose that we will need to go into the clinical trials. So, as I said, we've had a lot of grants to get us this far, 5 million, and I've written 4 in the last 6 months because we're at the end of our funding. So thank you very much, and we're definitely looking for investors. You should speak with Dr. Silverman about that. And we thank Rainforest for their gap fundings twice that have brought this forward. Thank you.
Just waiting for the show to start. So I'm here representing the work of my team. Dr. Sephra Ryman and Dr. Andre Vatkin are the outstanding scientists on our project. But I want to acknowledge as well the teamwork we've had with Greg Banninger and the staff of Rainforest Innovation, Patty Colum of VA Tech Transfer. They have been there with us, supporting us through our discoveries. So neurodegenerative conditions are characterized by abnormal accumulation of unwanted proteins. So for example, amyloid beta and tau protein in Alzheimer's disease, alpha-synuclein and amyloid beta in Parkinson's and related conditions. And when you put a patient through a PET scanner and you target the amyloid beta, you see the abnormal accumulation of this protein. Here, the heaviest accumulation is in magenta. And you see it in Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and Parkinson variants, and even some in healthy, older control population, telling us that it's a threshold problem. After you exceed a safe threshold, you become symptomatic. And it also implies that there must be a cleaning mechanism to get rid of the unwanted protein. And indeed there is. It's called glymphatic clearance. This mechanism is most active during the non-rapid eye movement stage of deep sleep. It's also called slow wave stage of sleep because during that time the neurons generate an oscillatory electrical wave that end up driving cycles of vasodilation and vasoconstriction that serves to pump the cerebral spinal fluid across the brain, clear the unwanted proteins and waste products, and flush them into the bloodstream. So we found a way of inducing this glymphatic clearance on command by breathing 35 seconds of 5% carbon dioxide, which we call intermittent hypercapnia. We're able to induce pulsatile blood flow, vasomotion in gray matter of the brain, coupled with rhythmic flow of cerebral spinal fluid. And this is a study done in 33 healthy controls and 30 patients with clinically evident Parkinson's disease. So I'm going to show you on the right-hand side, you see in red the pulses of carbon dioxide. We're so excited with the very first pulse of carbon dioxide. We saw that we were able to move blood flow through the brain in black. And even more exciting is that the vasomotion was then coupled to flow of cerebral spinal fluid in blue. In fact, we were able to replicate exactly what you see during deep stage of sleep. So on the right-hand side, what you see is you see in green pulsatile blood flow through the brain. And during sleep, that's induced by the rhythmic slow wave generated by neurons. And that's coupled to, in magenta, flow of cerebrospinal fluid. But we were able to do this, replicate this, just with pulses of carbon dioxide, switching from carbon dioxide to room air, carbon dioxide to room air. We were able to get the same pattern. So of course, now you really want to know whether or not this intermittent hypercapnia-induced lymphatic clearance can flush out the unwanted proteins. So we collected blood over time from our study subjects. We wanted to see the increase in concentration of these unwanted proteins to demonstrate that we're actually flushing them out into the bloodstream. And that's what we saw. In both Parkinson's patients and healthy controls, we saw that alpha-synuclein, amyloid beta, tau protein all came out, as well as marker proteins that can only come from brain cells. For example, GFAP. That's a protein made by astrocytes of the brain. So seeing GFAP coming out demonstrated that the lymphatic clearance that we generated from pulses of CO2 cleared brain waste. The number of patients with neurodegenerative diseases have increased exponentially, estimated to be more than 57 million people worldwide currently. More than 70 million Americans suffer from sleep disorder. And in a survey conducted by AARP, 93% of American adults want to have an intervention to maintain or improve their brain health. We have 2 NIH-R1 proposals under review to test the effect of 12 sessions of intermittent hypercapnia. What you saw was induced with a single 30-minute session. VA Engineering Corps in Cleveland, Ohio, is building a prototype to facilitate our research. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I am Armando Peña from Los Alamos National Lab. Today, I am here to share what we are building at KVX Tech. By the way, this is a very different stuff. It's more related to water treatments, not to the bioscience. I'm here to show you what we are building with this technology and also to show you why we believe that we can use this technology to unlock real value from streams that usually people see used as a operational expense. And this is very important right now because US is facing several national security supply chain vulnerabilities regarding with critical materials. Inside critical material, we have a lot of different materials and minerals, but if we focus just, for example, in the rare earth elements, this field is about, in the global market, is about $4 billion. The problem for the United States is that this market is controlled by external actors. So we have a huge gap in the supply chain regarding these materials. So if we develop any kind of technology that we can develop related to extraction, separation, and recovery of these kind of materials will help accelerating to reduce this gap in the supply chain that we have in the country. And it's here where we can see a market opportunity, especially because the emission pool is very strong into in a dual use opportunity, one related to the Department of War and other related to commercial applications that sometimes can be overlap or not. Again, if we focus in the rare earth area, but in a more specific application, some people is trying to recover these elements from magnets that these people is trying to have some process to recycle these magnets. So this market is estimated to be more than $1 billion by 2033. So this is another opportunity. If we have in consideration that, and we add the factor that the major part of these minerals go to the waste streams, because in other areas, these minerals, I mean, they are not being recovered, just put in the trash. So we have other areas that we can explore to extract these metals. And also the main problem here is that we can see here that we don't have problem with the feedstock. The main challenge is in the system or the technology that we use to separate these elements from these kind of streams. And it's here where our technology, KVX Tech, can help to extract and separate critical materials. Right now we have different areas in which we can be focused, but right now we are focusing on two use cases. One is the magnet recycling that I mentioned before, and the other area is recovering magnesium from produced water. The market, the global market for magnesium, not just the magnesium as a metal, is also the magnesium that it can be related to pharmaceutical companies, the medicine, the capsules of magnesium that we take in the morning, for example. That market is huge as well. So we have another opportunity for our technology. Just to give you an example, if we use this technology to extract magnesium from produced water, we can help oil and gas operators to transform that produced water, extracting that magnesium, so we can help to transform that produced water from a costly liability into a revenue generating asset. And how we do that? Well, we can help these people or these companies to recover the metals, generate value from waste, and at the same time, with technology can help to purify that water in order that the water can be reused in the same application, in the same application or other applications as agriculture. So we can use that with our technology because KVX Tech offer a different approach. It's a modular system that we can move, so we don't need a centralized plant. Also, the system can work in a very different composition when we have a very different elements. And also the most important thing is that we can tune the technology in order to target to a group or to a particular element. Currently, to give you an idea, our system is at the bench stop scale. We are developing more tests in order to understand better the process before designing the first modular prototype. And also we are looking for partners that can provide real samples that we can test, and also that can provide pilot site access. And of course, partners that can help us to build and design the first prototype. I will be happy to answer any questions and to explain better how we are helping with our technology to create resources that reduce that gap that the United States is facing right now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Donghyeon, faculty member from New Mexico Tech, and also I'm representing my startup company. I co-founded with my partner, Dr. Peter standing over there. So my approach is a little bit different. As a structural engineer by training, I'm actually focusing on something that we can see from outside, basically the movement, the overall physical phenomena, including gross and fine movement, and also change in size and shape of the body. So the novel concept I'm going to present today is a physical health digital twin. So digital twin that actually copies exactly yourself, everything about the physical phenomena in the digital environment. So human body is a very unique structure system, not like an engineered structure system. And then everyone has a different unique body, and it keeps changing. And then aging, and then different, weight, and gaining and losing, and then we keep changing. It's extremely dynamic. And also, it's really hard to measure the physical phenomena because at the major joint, and you see definitely more than 30% of strain, and that there is no commercial strain sensor that we can use for measuring strains on the human body. And then, but imagine that you have your own physical health digital twin, PHDT, that has a long-term physical data, and so that you can see what's happening over 10 years and what is going to happen in 10 years. That is amazing. And but with the current sensor technology, it is impossible for us to create this kind of PHDT. So one of the state of arts is non-contact motion tracking using videos and then remote sensor, and then, but it cannot actually gather a long-term stimulus data because this is a kind of special environment that you need to stand and then move and for tracking. And health monitoring wearable is a good candidate, but it is a really uncomfortable to put on, and then you need to recharge it every day, and then it requires battery, most of the sensors. So as a solution, I'm proposing my invention about the multifunctional mechanoluminescent optoelectronic composite that has a US patent issued over about the design that I developed out of my previous research project. And then the left side on the figure, and you can actually see the captured image of the article published in Aerospace America. And the MLO composite is composed of two different functional components. And the one is a mechanoluminescent composite that actually glows when it's mechanically strained. And another component is mechano-optoelectronic thin films that generates electricity using light. And I assembled those together to output direct current when it's mechanically deformed. And then on the right-hand side, there is a video that captured how direct current generates, and then also it actually changes its magnitude in tandem with applied strain magnitude. And also you can see the light emission from one of the components in the MLO composites. So using the ML composite, we did actually testing by mounting it on the kneecap, and kneecap actually experiences more than 30% strain. And my students are riding bike, and then you see in the middle video, keeps moving, and the right-hand side, and then also we can actually gather the DC output from sensor, and also track the leg movement to track the angle and calculate the reference strain. And because there is no commercial strain sensor we can use, and then we actually trained the machine learning code to use it as a kind of a sensor function so that we can estimate the strain based on the DC output. So right-hand side is a very simplified PHDT to track the leg movement by angle, and you can see the video really matches well the digital twin in the digital environment. So I'm currently working on to develop the MLO composite in the small and the fibrous form factor so that I can woven the fiber into the everyday garment or textile so that we can develop the smart clothing by my startup company, RDHS. So I imagine that this MLO-based smart clothing can actually help early diagnosis of the neuromuscular disease based on the physical movement and anything happening on the human body. So imagine that the PhDT gathered really long-term data, seamless data, and then we should be able to detect anomaly in the data after processing. And we should be able to see something happening early enough to do a proactive treatment. And also, PhDT is highly personalized, so it can actually improve the prognosis and diagnosis and provide a very customized treatment. And also, PhDT can be used for testing digital different medical therapies so that they can find and suggest optimized therapy for each person. So imagine that I started as a lab invention and one patent over issued on the design of the MLO composite. And then second stage, we received the funding from Socorro Ventures and we developed prototypes, and we are seeking Series A to move off campus to start a business in Socorro. And then we expect that the NMT trained student can work for startup company to produce to manufacture product, to sell the product worldwide to help boost the Central Valley economy. Thanks so much for your attention. I'd like to acknowledge my partners, RDHS, and then also my former and current student and the funding sources. Thank you.
Well, we have quite a diversity here, right? We have green chemistry from potential treatment for chronic pain, removal of waste proteins from the brain, a new novel way of water treatment, and also digital twins. I think it's pretty amazing. I do want to ask all of you, what do you find was the biggest barrier when you were trying to move from research to commercializing what you were doing? And I'll take a volunteer to start, or I'll volunteer you again.
Hello, check, hey. Well, we haven't gone to the commercial stage yet, but I think for us, getting partners and figuring out exactly what is needed in the industrial level is going to be our biggest challenge, because we already know we can make some of these bonds, we can scale it up. So knowing exactly what to target and with whom we should work is probably going to be our biggest challenge.
My biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is money. How many grants can I write in 6 months?
Oh, yeah. No? Okay. So what would be something that would help you accelerate your goals for your company or for your technology in New Mexico? What would be something that you greatly need here to move this forward? Well, I know if I can speak to my company, one of the things that is very important is finding partners, as you mentioned, but then also being part of the ecosystem here and trying to connect in the context of where will I get funding, either privately or maybe through venture capital. It is one of the things that's of interest nowadays is the integration, for example, of AI within a lot of the companies that are potentially going to get funded for venture capital. And so I'm curious if any of you have considered how you would integrate AI into your companies, into your technology, or how would that help you streamline processes as you move forward your company?
So we actually already are using AI in some of our technology, and so a big part of it is optimizing yield. So if I put in X amount of precursor, I want to get 100% of the product out. It is very rare in organic chemistry that you get 100% yields, but we're looking at all of the parameters in the system to try to optimize those yields and minimize byproducts and minimize waste.
Anyone else?
currently we are creating data. So for us, what we need the most is, I mean, a better ecosystem that we can create more collaborations, because we are at Los Alamos National Lab is a bubble, so we have practically everything, but then trying to increase the scale here in New Mexico is challenging, but there is some people that is working with similar technologies that we can integrate, we can collaborate, sharing knowledge, sharing data, sharing experience. So that is something that I was able to see when I started with this program. The other thing is, for example, our technology is sometimes can be science specific, but once you can find this kind of people that is doing something related to that technology, help, because I mean, you can share what you are doing, and maybe you can get a partnership to go to the next step. But it's something that this kind of activities help a lot, because sometimes you are like the bubble.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. We actively use machine learning for data processing, especially whenever the data size is getting bigger. You know, machine learning is a killer. So without machine learning, it's really hard to get meaningful data out of it. And also, in future, if we build a PhDT with a lot of data points that cover almost the entire body surface, and then that is going to be really important to process all the data using machine learning to keep updating for making the PhDT self-evolve based on the data over time.
So I'll go ahead and open it to the audience. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Have someone.
Go over here.
Yes. Or is there a microphone or?
Is this working here? Oh, okay,
There you go.
fantastic. Okay, so just talking to the panel here, as you try to develop your technology and try to make a commercial product, do you see in terms of the workforce, what type of skills do you feel that is necessary, people should start to focus on? So as a student, let's say you're a high school kid, right? And you're coming up, you're a college kid. What would be the skills and the talents that they should be trying to nurture and develop?
Sorry. Physics, electrochemistry. So these kind of areas, I'm not sure here in New Mexico, but usually people take these courses when they are ending the undergrads or maybe as a graduate students. But you can develop some modules for high school, for example. Also in the lab we have like a volunteering system that helps schools in Santa Fe, for example. So I think that it's necessary. I mean, at least that a student have that in mind and try to show this in an attractive way. Yeah, because usually we need a lot of people that know about the area, but everybody's coming from outside. Even, I mean, me, I think that everybody is coming from outside the New Mexico, at least for the electrochemical part. We need more of that here, I think.
The most important thing is to be able to cultivate and nurture curiosity. You can see how a kindergartner runs around exploring naturally the environment around him or her. We need to save that. You know, we need to nurture that. We need to grow that. You know, because that curiosity ultimately is a path for discovery. And we need more of that.
The thing that helped me the most was that during my PhD, I was sitting next to the medical students. I was seeing the clinical correlations that they were seeing. So I got a very broad background. And to just focus on genetics, one little field, I do not find helpful. as far as the people that I've worked with on the teams. I see the people who have a broad thinking out of the box, as you say.
I would second the curiosity point. I would also add scientific thinking, because I think scientific thinking can be applied broadly, as well as mathematics. Many students coming from New Mexico high schoolers tend to have lower backgrounds in mathematics, and that's something we have to catch up a lot in general chemistry, and a lot of students tend to flunk out of general chemistry because of their poor mathematical background.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? I do have a question about the treatment for chronic pain, the antibody. So I'm curious, I know you mentioned that you're writing a lot of grants. Is there any interest in looking for other sources of funding at this time? And if so, what is it that you're focusing on?
That's why I teamed up, or Laurie Silverstein teamed up with me, and that's her job. She is attending all sorts of entrepreneur and investor events, and I think that I would not do a good job at that, but I know she is.
Okay. How about all of you? Are you looking for a very specific source of funding, or are you broadening into different sources of funding?
So we are currently looking for Series A, but any type of funding would be helpful for us to start the real business off campus and to manufacture, products at a lower cost. Yep.
Have you considered like moving to any like accelerators or any like of the programs that are part of New Mexico that help with the entrepreneurial process?
Yeah, we are open to any options. Yeah, within the state or out of state.
Hopefully in state. Okay.
Yeah, we are also open to any kind of help. I am part of the University of California, Los Alamos National Lab Entrepreneurial Postdoc, and we have the people in charge around. So that helped a lot. That open your mind, fiercely, when you came from the scientific part. Also help you with the customer discovery, with people, with networking, with this kind of events. So it's something like that is good.
Okay. Well, how are we in time? I don't have my phone with Lisa. Oh, perfect. I didn't see you. Sorry.
Hi. This question is mostly for Professor Folkman. So you're essentially leveraging a new manufacturing technique with electrosynthesis, right? So can you tell us a little bit about the advantages of electrosynthesis over traditional manufacturing techniques and how you've thought about using those to break into what is, I think, already an established market?
Yes, absolutely. So the advantage to our technology is that you're using electricity to directly generate your reactive species, so that can be prepared to a renewable energy technology. So if I have solar panels hooked up, I can actually use that to drive the formation of a pharmaceutical, for example, or a commodity chemical like ethyl acetate. And as you mentioned, yeah, there's a very large market for a lot of that. And so I'm not going to be selling the pharmaceuticals. I'm not going to be selling the ethyl acetate. What I want to be able to do is partner with an already established company and then work with them to develop the technology so that that technology can be implemented at the large scale. I don't think we're going to be the ones actually producing the chemicals. We'll be helping to develop the technology with a partner who's already in the space.
Any other questions? Perfect.
So have any of you looked outside of your field to see if there's any other fields that would take advantage of your technologies? I know that's what we try to do in my office. We'll see something that's invented for this, but we'll look at other things for use. Have you thought about any of that? Especially like the sensor, the physical thing. I could see tons of applications for that.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dr. Kaplan. And then especially based on my background as an engineer, I'm interested in collaborating with any medical experts who can potentially benefit from this technology for early diagnosis and prognosis, and also from the perspective of the commercialization of technology, I'm very interested in manufacturing the products at a larger scale, at a lower cost, to make a revenue to sustain the business. So those kind of two major fields I'm interested in collaboration.
Henry, could you adapt a ResMed machine, a sleep apnea machine, so that it would turn off on these cycles? So, because then you're probably naturally going to build up the carbon dioxide and have these little sequences. And then you could use basically the same technology and just expand it.
Sure. There are a lot of companies that have a lot of experience and knowledge in building machines for patients with sleep disorders. Our requirements are decidedly simpler than what's necessary for managing sleep apnea. For example, the sleep apnea is designed to overcome a mechanical obstruction. So an airtight fit is necessary to pressurize across that mechanical obstruction. Being exposed to pulses of CO2 doesn't have that requirement. So you can just have it in front of you, and then so you get pulses of CO2 every 35 seconds, and interchange with room air while you're watching Netflix. And then so I think it'll be very easy for those companies to come up with a design because it's much simpler.
You actually stop breathing.
No, you don't. You're just breathing normally. And then the pulses of CO2 are being delivered in front of your nose and mouth.
I had 32 breath stops in 6 hours before I got my machine. You actually stop. There's no obstruction. I just stopped. That's a different type, maybe.
Sure, that's called central sleep apnea. And then there's a different kind of machine. It's a really interesting but much more complicated machine that detects how you breathe. And then so I'm simply pointing out that these companies have been advancing the technology tremendously over the last 10 years, and this is nothing, compared to what's necessary to help a patient with central sleep apnea. And then the question becomes whether or not delivering the intermittent hypercapnia is more advantageous, coupled to what happens supported through the night, right? As opposed to you're being awake and watching Netflix and getting your brain waste flushed out. And then so we're going to compare awake versus sleep just to look at that. Yeah, but thank you.
Great question. I'm curious, so this is all a long process, and if there would be someone in the audience that's starting the similar process as you are right now, what would be some lessons learned? Something that you learn along the way that you would tell them it's better to do it this way, or you would do it a little bit differently once you have learned some of these things. I know it's a little broad, but to speak about your experience in this process. I'll start with you.
I would say having a team and mentorship is absolutely critical. So I've worked a lot with the NMSU Arrowhead Center, and that has been absolutely critical to coming here, for example, filing the IP. So having leadership and others in the field who are more experienced in aspects that you may not be as experienced in.
A part of that, ask what people need or what industry needs, because what I think that the country can need from my scientific perspective is very different. I start all this process for uranium, for example, and then during the process I discover the other applications that I can use. We have other applications as well for biomolecules, for example. Yeah, but ask several questions that help you to get a better perspective.
Yeah, I believe they call it voice of the customer, right? You really have to see if the customer is interested, because as a scientist you may think that is really cool, but the customer may not need it. The technology may not be needed. So great.
Yeah, my answer is pretty similar to first panel. As a faculty, no previous experience about commercialization, no idea what is the patent and what's the process, how much is it, and definitely work with Office of Commercialization at school as a faculty if you're interested in, if you're a faculty member, and then protect your idea by filing the provisional patent, and then definitely have a mentorship who knows how to commercialize. I was lucky to have my partner from campus, Dr. Anzamo, and then so that's an important thing. If you don't know anything about technology, commercialization.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know the time. It's good. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for all the information and for sharing this with us.